I'm hungry.
What are you doing?
I'm photosynthesizing, obviously.
I don't think that's gonna work.
Why not?
You don't have chlorophyll or chloroplasts or any of the right enzymes.
Yeah, I guess you're right. I'm gonna go read up on it. Photosynthesis is the process where sunlight is used to create organic molecules, specifically carbohydrates. The word literally means light production. This process first appeared around 3.5 billion years ago in some of the first forms of cellular life. At that time, there was not much organic material that could be used as energy. The sun, however, provided an infinite source of radiation that could be harnessed to build the chemicals needed for cells to grow and reproduce. Over time, cells developed the process known today as photosynthesis. The first organisms to pioneer this process were single-celled prokaryotes like cyanobacteria we observed in our microscope labs. These organisms were so plentiful and so productive that they eventually altered the atmosphere through the process of photosynthesis. Cyanobacteria are not the only photosynthetic organisms. Two eukaryotic kingdoms are also able to photosynthesize. Many protists possess this ability, such as diatoms and the euglena. Finally, plants have taken this process to a whole new level. The photosynthetic reaction is really a series of several reactions. We can distill that broader process into one equation, pictured here. Solar energy, carbon dioxide, and water are the reactants. These are the raw materials that will be used to produce carbohydrates and oxygen, the products. This formula, CH2ON, is a generic formula for a carbohydrate. N acts as a multiplier. If you put a 6 where N is, you get C6H12O6, the formula for glucose. The first product of photosynthesis is actually a molecule called glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate, or G3P. This molecule can be used as a starting point for basically any carbohydrate. These reactions are a series of reduction and oxidation reactions, or redox reactions. A substance is oxidized when it loses an electron or electrons, while a reduction results in the gain of electrons. Why is this important? Remember that there's a lot of energy stored in chemical bonds. And what are chemical bonds made of? Electrons. By shuffling around electrons in chemical bonds, energy is being transferred. This will be important to understand. In the photosynthetic reaction, what is being oxidized and what is being reduced? Water is oxidized. It loses some electrons to form oxygen. Carbon dioxide is reduced to form carbohydrates. This reduction means we are jamming lots of electrons and thus lots of chemical bonds and chemical energy into a molecule. Now, photosynthesis isn't just cool. It is incredibly important for a few reasons. One major reason you should care about photosynthesis is the fact that it generates food for basically all life on Earth. No matter how far up the food chain you are, ultimately, all those nutrients came from solar energy converted to sugars by photosynthetic organisms. Another reason you should really care about photosynthesis is because a byproduct of the process is oxygen. Oxygen is necessary for the process of cellular respiration, which we will cover next week. Cellular respiration is how organisms convert sugars into ATP, the energy currency for cells. Additionally, photosynthetic organisms have been providing us with fuel in the form of energy stored in their bodies. Fossil fuels consist mostly of long-dead plants, but we also use recently dead plant material for fuel as well, such as wood. The amount of biomass that photosynthesis supports also generates massive amounts of biodiversity. Ecosystems with higher levels of primary productivity, aka photosynthesis, support much higher levels of biodiversity. The diagram on the right depicts how solar energy is used by the chloroplast and then passed on to be converted to other forms. Recall that with every energy conversion, some energy is lost as heat. That's the second law of thermodynamics. The chloroplast converts solar energy, along with water and carbon dioxide, into chemical energy in the form of carbohydrates, like glucose. It also produces some oxygen in that process. Those two products, carbohydrates and oxygen, are then used in the process of cellular respiration, which takes place in the mitochondria of eukaryotic cells. Those two reactants are used to create ATP, which can be used to do chemical transport or mechanical work. But then carbon dioxide and water are produced as byproducts of cellular respiration. That water, carbon dioxide, can then be reused in photosynthesis, creating a cycle of matter. It's one of those circle of life sorts of things where, everything's connected, man. For our purposes, we will use land plants as our model organism for photosynthesis. Plants take the raw materials of sunlight, water, and carbon dioxide to produce carbohydrates and oxygen as a byproduct. To better understand this process, we need to know a bit about plant anatomy. The image here is from the underside of a leaf. Since carbon dioxide is a gas, plants must somehow inhale this gas. They do this via openings on the underside of the leaf called stomata. Stoma is Greek for mouth. Stomata are formed by two guard cells that fill with water. This causes the pore to open. When the cells are low in water, they relax, causing the pore to close. Let's take a closer look at a leaf. This is a cross-section through a leaf. The bottom of the leaf is down here. The top of the leaf is here. Sunlight hits the upper surface of this leaf at the upper epidermis and penetrates into the interior of the leaf. Inside the leaf, between the upper and lower epidermis, lies the mesophyll. This word means middle leaf. Mesophyll cells contain chloroplasts, the site of photosynthesis. Sunlight can penetrate directly into chloroplasts because it is a form of electromagnetic radiation. Carbon dioxide, however, must enter through stomata. As those gases enter, they fill the air spaces and diffuse into the cells and eventually the chloroplasts. Water is delivered to these cells from the roots via the veins you see in a leaf. This acts much like a human's cardiovascular system. Inside the chloroplast, we have several other structures we must be familiar with. This organelle has three membranes. The outer membrane and the inner membrane are not too important for the process of photosynthesis. The structure known as the thylakoid is where most of the magic happens. This also consists of a phospholipid bilayer, but has been folded and stacked to dramatically increase the surface area available for photosynthesis. These stacks resemble grain silos and thus have been dubbed grana, or granum for a single one. Embedded in the thylakoid membrane is the molecule chlorophyll. This molecule absorbs solar energy and drives photosynthesis. Inside of the thylakoid is called the thylakoid space. Between the thylakoid and the inner membrane is the stroma. These locations will be important to understand when we get to the process of photosynthesis itself. To wrap up this week's lesson, we're going to do a little experiment. So, as I showed you earlier, the structure of a leaf has some air spaces in there, and as a result of that, leaves usually float when they're in water. What you also know is that the photosynthetic equation takes sunlight, carbon dioxide, and water and makes sugars and oxygen. That oxygen is usually a gas. So what we're going to do is we're going to punch some holes in a leaf. We're going to take those leaf discs that we punched out, and we're going to use a syringe. We're going to fill that syringe with a solution and the discs, and we're going to create a vacuum. And what that's going to do is remove all the air spaces from those leaves and fill those spaces with the solution that we've chosen. We're going to have two solutions. One of them is just going to be plain water. The other one is going to be a solution of baking soda.
Baking soda has bicarbonate in it, and bicarbonate will serve as the carbon source for the photosynthetic equation. It's basically going to serve as a proxy for carbon dioxide here. When we fill those leaves with the solution, they should sink to the bottom of the solution. They're going to be put in these cups, and we'll see our little leaf discs at the bottom. As those leaf discs are able to photosynthesize, they're going to be producing oxygen gas. That will cause the discs to float to the surface. Now, that's only going to happen if they have a carbon source. So tap water doesn't have that. So we'll have tap water in our control cup here, and then we'll put our baking soda solution in this other cup. We'll have our discs in each of these as well. Put them out in the sun, let them photosynthesize, or attempt to for a little bit, and we'll see what happens to those discs. So right now you should make a prediction. Of our two groups, our tap water control or a baking soda solution, the treatment group, which of these will have more floating discs at the end of about a 15-minute period? I've placed some leaf discs in the syringe. Next thing I'm going to do is add the solution. We have to actually add two different things to this. We have to add some detergent. That's going to actually help wet the hydrophobic surface of the plant leaf cells. It's going to allow the solution to actually penetrate inside the leaf itself. So as you can see, currently, the leaf discs are floating. I'm now going to create a vacuum, and it's going to fill the air spaces with this solution. This is the bicarbonate solution, and you'll see that they'll sink to the bottom. As you can see, the leaf discs have sunk. There you go. There's our treatment group with the discs at the bottom. So now I'm going to do the same thing for the water, the control group, and then I'll put them out in the sun, and we'll wait 15 minutes to see what happens. And there's our water group, discs at the bottom. Now we wait. After 5 minutes, the control has no floating discs. But the treatment has several floating discs. Let's wait another few minutes. We're going on 9 minutes now, and none of the discs in the control are floating, and all but one in the treatment are floating. So it should tell you which one was able to photosynthesize and which one wasn't. We're going to let it go the full 15 and see what happens. So the 15 minutes are up. Let's take these back to the lab bench and look at the results. So after those 15 minutes, take a look at the control, and you can see that none of those discs ended up floating. But in the bicarbonate solution, our treatment, pretty much all of them ended up floating. There's one last one kind of hovering on the bottom. All the other discs are on the top. So what happened? Well, in the treatment group with the bicarbonate solution, the floating discs had access to a carbon source. They had sunlight, they had water, so they could photosynthesize. In the process, they produced oxygen gas, which filled the air spaces in the leaf, causing the leaves to float. In the control, they didn't have that carbon source, so they couldn't produce any oxygen gas, which means that they stayed on the bottom. To conclude this week's lesson, there's a few key takeaways. First is that photosynthesis is converting solar energy to chemical energy, specifically in the form of carbohydrates. You should know that full photosynthetic equation as well. Furthermore, when you look at this equation, you should know that water is oxidized to form oxygen, and that carbon dioxide is reduced to form that stored energy in the form of carbohydrates. You should also know that there's an organelle within plant cells called the chloroplast, and that this is the actual site of photosynthesis, and within that organelle, there is a molecule called chlorophyll. And this is the molecule that actually absorbs solar energy. Finally, you should understand and appreciate the importance of photosynthesis, namely because it provides food for basically all life on Earth, and because it generates oxygen, biomass, and biodiversity. Next week, we'll dive into the processes of the light reaction and the light-independent reaction, and learn a little bit more about how chlorophyll uses visible light in order to kickstart this process.